The darkness cleared. His skull throbbed. He fought to hold up his head. His legs were weak, yet he stood, motionless, his eyes absorbing the haunting panorama before him. The compound bustled with fervent activity as the Order of the Inferno immersed themselves in their sinister rituals. Their movements, synchronized in a bizarre dance of devotion, were accentuated by the low, rhythmic chants that echoed in the air, each word the testament of their unwavering faith. Every cultist wore a distinct attire. Robes dyed in deep hues of crimson and orange draped over their bodies, mimicking the very flames they revered. Their faces, half hidden by intricate masks made of old car license plates, air filter assemblies and bits of thick upholstery leather, displayed only their fervent eyes. Hung around their necks were amulets made of spark plugs and carburetors, which clinked softly with each step. Around the compound, several members could be seen inhaling from rusted canisters, their eyes burnished with the intoxicating influence of ether. It gave them visions, or so they believed, connecting them with the spirit of their departed hero, Yindi Idris. Clusters of cultists worked together, building altars from salvaged car parts. Mufflers, transmissions, and axles were artfully assembled, creating makeshift shrines to worship. Here and there, torches made from old exhaust pipes spewed flames, casting a dance of shadows on the ground and illuminating the religious fervor around. In the middle of the compound stood an imposing statue of Yindi Idris, meticulously constructed. Its skeletal frame was made of exhaust pipes and drive shafts. His torso was a mosaic of engine components and interlocking gears, moving and turning, while his outstretched arm, made from axles and steering rods, pointed skyward in a triumphant pose. The head was the piece de resistance, an old racing helmet adorned with a glowing pair of repurposed headlights for eyes, giving the statue a ghostly visage that seemed to pierce the night. At its base, flames flickered and danced, a perpetual pyre that bathed Yindi Idris in an ethereal, fiery luminescence. The centerpieces of their devotion, however, were their cars. Each vehicle told of a world consumed. Some were brutal, their armored exteriors studded with spikes. The flamethrowers that adorned them hissed menacingly, ready to unleash their fury. Others, more sleek and agile, had engines crawling out of their hoods like the damned clawing their way up from the very pits of hell. Open headers belched blue flame. Canisters of used oil hung off the rear bumpers, leaving a snail trail of flaming grease. All over the vehicles were ornamentation, twisted sculptures of metal and bone, gleaming under the setting sun. Every car bore the fiery insignia of the Order, marking them as instruments of the Inferno. The acrid smells of burning rubber, wood, and fuel drifted him back to a different time, a moment of sheer terror and adrenaline. He was behind the wheel of his armored Camaro, its original sleek contours now layered with haphazardly welded metal plates. Meshed windows offered him a distorted view of the wasteland ahead, the car's engine roaring like a caged beast, hungry for the open road. Glancing in the rearview mirror, a terrifying sight met his eyes, a phalanx of fiery chariots in hot pursuit. The Order's demonic insignias burned bright against the sun-beaten chassis. Some were fast, real fast. They zipped by him, their tires spinning so rapidly they left trails of fire on the scorched earth. The very ground seemed to shake with their combined might, each vehicle a monstrous incarnation of speed, of power. The roar of combustion filled his ears, punctuated by the occasional concussive blast of the flamethrowers, the fierce heat feeling its way inside his armored sanctuary. One particular car caught his attention. Its front grille was fashioned like a roaring beast, flames spewing from its nostrils, a horrifying sight that was both mesmerizing and terror-inducing. He was gaining. The Camaro's V8 engine revved in response, urging him forward, faster, always faster. He swerved, spun, and veered, the chase becoming a deadly dance between predator and prey. The horizon ahead promised the silhouette of the ghost town, his only hope for escape, or perhaps his final resting place. As the armored Camaro approached, its silhouette painted a haunting backdrop against the setting sun. The wooden structures of the town appeared almost skeletal, the remnants of a world long past. Their shadows stretched across the ground, like fingers reaching out in a plea for salvation. Without missing a beat, he floored the accelerator, making towards what seemed to be the main street. The echo of his tires against the gravel road was soon drowned out by the menacing growls of the Order in pursuit. The race intensified as they reached the town's outskirts. He took a hard turn and slid sideways past an old saloon, its once vibrant sign now faded and creaking ominously. A sudden impact to his rear sent shivers up his spine. They were attempting to ram him off the road. The old saloon on his left crumbled and a ratted-out Firebird crashed into him, sending wooden planks and flames soaring. As he maneuvered through the tight labyrinth and alleyways, he caught glimpses of the town's remaining inhabitants. Men and women, their faces etched with fear, emerged from their hiding places, only to be met with the chaos unfolding around them. The Order were relentless, their twisted pleasure evident as flamethrowers were recklessly fired, setting buildings ablaze. The flames quickly spread, turning the ghost town into a blazing inferno. The air was filled with the pungent smell of burning wood, mixed with the screams of the townsfolk. Their desperate attempt to escape halted as the advancing flames consumed them, their silhouettes forever imprinted against the fire's backdrop. Driving on, he made a split-second decision to head for the old bridge at the town's edge. Its rusted metal and creaky boards didn't inspire much confidence, but it was the only way out. As he approached, the roar of engines grew deafening, and the heat of the flames intensified. He could feel the Order closing in, their intent clear. Pushing his Camaro to its limits, he made a mad dash for the bridge. But the cult was not to be outdone. With a sudden jolt, the world turned upside down. Everything went black. Consciousness ebbed back. Slowly, the muffled chants of the Order gradually grew louder and more distinct. As his senses returned, he was gripped by an overwhelming feeling of disorientation. A nauseating pain pulsated at his temples, the throbbing rhythm mirroring his racing heart. He tried to cough and vomited. His eyes burned. The smell of the gasoline on his jeans brought his immediate surroundings into focus. The ghost town was far beyond him, replaced by the sight of the Order's compound. He could feel the uneven ground beneath him. He was standing on tires. There was a rusty piece of I-beam scratching into his back, the chill of metal against his wrist and ankles. As realization dawned, panic set in. He was bound, chains restricting his movements, rendering him helpless before the Order. The fervent activities of the cultists were now clear. Men and women, their faces painted with ash and soot, danced in a trance-like state. They prayed to their makeshift altar of twisted car parts, offering tokens and reverence to their fallen hero, Yindi Idris. He watched as they inhaled deeply from rags, their eyes glazing over with euphoria. The chanting grew louder, engulfing his every sense. A sea of faces, masks gleaming and eyes aflame, washed over him. His heart raced as he tried to shift loose. Cold, unyielding steel bit into his wrists. Despair washed over him. He was no longer a racer in the vast expanse of Gaslands. He was a captive, at the mercy of a raving band of lunatics. The crowd seemed to part, allowing a figure to step forward. Burn scars marred his skin, each one a step in his dance with the flame, a dance with death. This was a man who knew pain, who had embraced it, and who now wielded it with a terrifying reverence. As he neared, the scarred man reached into a pocket, producing a solitary match. The tiny piece of wood, so inconspicuous in any other setting, now held the attention of all. In the old man's hand, it was the key to a gateway, a promise of a blazing finale. He struck the match against the rough side of a small metal box. The friction sparked a tiny eruption of light and flame. As the phosphorus ignited, the flame came alive, starting as a small burst before settling into a steady warm glow. The light from the flickering match painted his face in warm oranges and yellows, revealing every contour and casting stark shadows on his features. He slowly stepped closer. Sure-footed, his gnarled hand gently wrapped around the flame, protecting their fragile god. As he approached the tire pyre, the entire compound held its breath. As the priest slowly walked back to the circle, hands lost in his sleeves, and his head bent low, slow grins formed under the masks of his congregation. The quickly growing flames refracted in the dark depths of their eyes.